There we go. Hey, it's Raul Tomasi. I'm coming to you today from my rehearsal studio here in Reno, Nevada. I decided to get out of the house and finally shoot one of these one-off videos. Hope to do more of these. They're just going to be easily digestible, maybe 10-minute, 15-minute videos on just some of the classic principles from my first book, which is The Rational Male. At least that's where I'm starting. And I just want to start by saying I'm in a rehearsal studio and there are other bands just down the hall here, so if you hear some music or you hear something going on around, I apologize, but I thought nobody was going to be here. So anyways, so today we're going to be talking about one-itis and the soulmate myth. And I have to start this out by letting you guys know that on the Saturday show for Rule Zero, today is March 25th, and so the Saturday show will be on Rich Cooper's channel, and we're going to be talking about this topic as well. We're going to be talking about one-itis and the soulmate myth, and just sort of how the modern interpretation of it is something that I think is still sort of a blue pill ideal that even a lot of red pill guys still sort of cling to. So I wanted to give you guys kind of like a primer before we got into that discussion. So let's just go over a few of the basics here. First of all, we have to cover two things. The first one is one-itis and the soulmate myth. Now, the first thing is one-itis. And what is one-itis? One-itis is a term that was used by the early pickup artists way back in the early 2000s. Like we're talking Mystery Method, we're talking like RSD, we're talking like Neil Strauss. All the classic guys that you saw or you read about maybe in the game back in 2005, that's where all of that came from. Now, the idea of what is one-itis, right? Like where did that idea come from? Well, the idea is this, is that there is a one for you. And I'm sure you've probably heard this before, like, oh, she's my one, she's going to be my one. Or you'll hear women will say, oh, I was with this guy and I thought he was the one. That's where that comes from. There's an idea that is very popular, I think, really has been very popular for almost like 50 years right now. If you have read The Rational Male, the very first chapter that's in The Rational Male is a chapter titled There Is No One. And in that chapter, I say this. I say there are some good ones and there are some bad ones, but there is no one. And the reason I say that is because that is probably the most pervasive myth that most guys still cling to, particularly when they're blue pill. They are looking for that one perfect girl. They're looking for that one monogamous girl. And we'll get into why that is here in just a little bit. Why are these guys looking for just this one perfect girl? Why is it such a foreign thought to have many girls? Why is it such a problem for these guys to date non-exclusively? Why does it, like, when guys come to me and they say, hey, I know what you're saying about spinning plates, but I'm not like that. How can I couldn't possibly ever get with more than one woman. I would feel bad about that. Well, there's a reason why those guys feel that way, is because for most of their lives, they have been acculturated, they've been raised, they've been educated to believe that there should only ever be one man, one woman. It's only about sort of serial monogamy. You only get with one woman. If it doesn't work with her, then you get with another woman. If it doesn't work out with her, then you got to get with another woman, and it doesn't work out with her, then, oh, maybe that other one was your one. And it used to be that one-itis was, or the soulmate myth. They're both kind of interchangeable, but I wanted to give you a little bit of history on one-itis first. So with respect to one-itis, I think that there was a time where the idea of a soulmate was just kind of like something that women would deal in. That's something you would read in like sort of classic women's literature kind of stuff, like Jane Eyre or Emily Bronte kind of stuff, the Pride and Prejudice authors and things like that, where there's this, oh, I think he's the one or he's not the one, or who should I choose? Should it be this prince or should it be this pauper? This kind of stuff. And so it's like, where's my heart going? It's this narrative that's kind of based on our classical understanding, our classical idealism of what is idealized romantic love. And it used to be something that was only, I don't say unique, but it was something that you would only hear from women. But as we have feminized the next generation, as we have feminized young men into feminized men right now for the past 4 generations, men have picked up on that. And that's only one myth of very many. But when we talk about one-itis, we're talking about the idea that there's only one person, that there's only one person for you, and you've got to find that one. It's like this quest. It's almost like this romance quest. It's this idea that there's that perfect princess that's out there for you. And I wanted to make sure at the very beginning of my first book that I kind of crushed that myth from the get-go. And that's why I put it as the very first chapter in my book. Because I thought, hey, if somebody picks up this book and they read this book, maybe they get through the introduction and they read the very first chapter of it, I want that very first chapter to be the most important thing that they take away from it. Because if they just only read one chapter and just said, forget it, I'm done with this, I wanted that to at least stick for them. Because I think that the ideal of the one is probably the single most damaging thing that most guys, that ruin most guys' lives. Because they think of women in terms of this is a quality woman, this is an idealization. And I'll talk about the quality woman today too a little bit. But I wanted to sort of focus on this really quickly because there's a reason why we cling to these kinds of myths. Now, we have to sort of rewind the tape and go back a little bit and understand that back in the day when we were becoming more monogamous, when we shifted over from agriculture from like our nomadic lifestyles to an agrarian lifestyle, it made sense for men to have access. Men have to have access to women individually. That's where we get the idea of monogamy today. Our classic idea of monogamy is one man, one woman. That's how we're always supposed to be. And we can make cases for the idea that, maybe humans were supposed to be monogamous, right? Because we have a better chance for survival. A child takes longer to gestate. A child takes longer to raise. For a human baby, anyways, takes longer to raise. And so, therefore, the best dynamic is monogamy for a man to protect the woman because a woman is weak and when she is, she's vulnerable when she is pregnant, and there's a lot of other stuff that goes along with that. But what I'm getting at here is something I talked about last week, and it's the idea of monogamy. Now, human beings, at least from my perspective, are not innately monogamous, but monogamy is something that we have to sort of force ourselves into in order to ensure survival. Now, why am I getting into this in a soulmate video? Well, the thing is that if we're going to teach a society that an innately sort of polyamorous species, if we're going to teach them that, hey, you know what? That you're this way, but we need you to be this way. We need you to be more focused on child rearing. We need you to be more focused. If you were to take the species and say, hey, we need you to do this, how would you go about doing that? Well, you would have to instill myths. You would have to instill social conventions that would promote the idea of monogamy. So how do guys get a wife? How do beta guys get a wife? How do we rein that in? Well, we teach them that there is only one person for them. We teach that to women, first of all, but we teach that to guys right now because otherwise these guys would be pursuing a mating strategy that is based on their innate mating strategy, which is unlimited access to unlimited sexuality. So what we teach to even the alpha males is that there should only ever be with one woman, that there's a soulmate out there for them, that there is there's one perfect person and we can even get it into religion, we can get it into just our fantasies, we can get it into our romance comedies, we can get it into every facet of life, into our popular media, into our storytelling, into our popular myths. So there is sort of a means of control over men's innate mating strategy. And that's something that gets a lot of guys into trouble. And that's why I put that as the very first chapter in. That's why I put that in the very first chapter of my book, because what was a good idea, maybe a good idea, I don't even say it's a good idea, but what was, at least conceptually, a good idea to sort of keep guys' innate mating strategy in check is now something that's sort of a disadvantage, because we have so thoroughly feminized guys today that they buy into the idea that they can't live without a girl. They can't live without their one. So if they get with a girl and they get a girlfriend and they think that's it, when that girl pulls up stakes, when that girl bails on that guy, they literally believe they cannot live without her, because that's her soulmate, right? You're taking away part of my soul. You're taking away my one. And not only is it a bad breakup from a sort of an intellectual or a mythological, I guess, perspective, it's also something that is a physical thing. So when men are with a girl, particularly guys who don't have a lot of access to women, like remember we're talking about like the guys who are the 80 percenters, right? The beta males who are 80 percenters. They finally get with a girl, and then that girl says, you know what, I don't have anything to do with you anymore. I'm going to go over here. I'm going to do my own thing. Those guys get into a breakup. Now, not only are they dealing with the sort of the mythological, idealistic rejection, they're also dealing with a physical rejection, which in most cases there's almost like physical withdrawals from that, because you're getting all your good feelings and all your dopamine and all of your chemical rush from having sex with that girl who's supposed to be your one, and now she's gone. That can really set off guys who aren't ready for that, particularly if they're steeped in the soulmate myth. So what happens for the most part is, because these guys have such a deep desire to have that one girl, they will do anything for that person. They will go out and so I wanted to touch upon why it is that guys will go to such extremes for a girl that they have oneitis for. And it's really easy, I think, now for me, and probably for you, if you have any kind of red pill awareness, when you see a guy like that and you listen to the words that the guy uses, you probably get a good idea that he subscribes to the soulmate myth. Sometimes he'll just simply say, oh, she's my one. I can't believe my one just left me. So these guys get a real unhealthy obsession about a girl, because they bought into this for so long, usually from their childhood. They bought into the idea that there's only one girl for them. It might be something that's part of their religion. Like, I'm waiting for the woman that God has ordained for me. Women say that a lot too, particularly kind of overly religious women believe that there is this one perfect guy that's out there that's preordained for them, like since the dawn of time, since before they were created, there was another part of them. There was their perfect soulmate, and it's that pervasive. The soulmate myth is a social myth. It's not a religious myth, or not a religious one per se. It is now. It's been sort of co-opted by a lot of religions. But that's how deep it gets. That's how deep it runs. I gave an illustration in the first chapter of The Rational Male, where I was in a behavioral psychology class, and the teacher had asked. She said, "How many of you guys believe in God?" And there's not that many people raise their hands. I'm okay, yeah, but. Then she says, how many of you believe that there is a soulmate, that there is a one perfect person out there for you? And all the hands shot up. All the hands shot up when that went on. And I sat there and I watched this. And I'm like, man, I said, for otherwise atheists, for otherwise rational, students of the human mind or psychology, for people who would reject religion outright, you're still, as far as I'm concerned, sort of, adopting religion of the masses, a religion of romance, a religion of chivalry. And why is that? Well, I think the reason for that is because most people want to find some way to solve their reproductive problem. And how do they go about doing that? Well, they have their own myths. They have their own mythology. They have their own, I call them social conventions, but they're really mythology. So you've got perfectly rational, perfectly rational, let's just say. You got more reasonable minds who pride themselves on their rationality, let's say, and they still adopt the idea that there is a soulmate. And why is that? Well, because that myth feeds that reproductive need, or it in some way satisfies the reproductive problem. And so that's why it's a very pervasive thing. So, anyways, just to sum this up here, I'm getting a little. I don't want to go too long today, but just to sum this up, the soulmate myth is an idea, a romanticized idea that is used to, first of all, today to control men, to control men's ideas with respect to monogamy, to promote monogamy. Really does the same thing for women as well. So if there's one perfect person out there that you're going to go out and you're going to go find, that is a focus on monogamy. That there's only one person. Okay, that's what I got to go after. Well, when we talk about like serial monogamists. Okay, to sum things up here, one-itis and the soulmate myth are unhealthy obsessions. They're unhealthy idealisms, is what they are. They are certainly mythologies that are embedded into our collective psyches, but they are also, in today's age, really since I think the 90s or maybe the 80s even, they have become sort of an unhealthy obsession. So at the very end here, I wanted to make sure that I covered this. A lot of guys will ask me, they'll say, well, Rollo, shouldn't I have one-itis for my wife? I love my girlfriend. She's the mother of my children. Should I not have one-itis for her? What if I want to call her my soulmate? I think there needs to be a distinction between somebody that you have a real deep connection with, and then separating that from the soulmate myth. Because the soulmate myth, one-itis, is an unhealthy, almost codependency. Like I was saying before, guys will do anything for that girl. Once that happens, then first of all, you're out of your frame, and second of all, you're out of a frame that she doesn't want you to be out of. So don't buy into one-itis. Don't buy into the soulmate myth. You will have a healthier relationship because of that. It's not to say that you can't have a deep relationship with your wife or your girlfriend or maybe some other girl. But the problem that I see happening, and I get into trouble for this sometimes, but I'm just going to try to define this for you. I have said this before, and I'll say it right now. There's no such thing as a quality woman. Now, guys will just lose their mind. My wife's a quality woman. She's the mother of my child. How could you possibly say that there's no such thing as a quality woman? The quality woman is the soulmate ideal. It's the ideal that there's a perfect girl out there for you somewhere, and if you can just be in the right place at the right time, and the stars align, and the fucking clouds open, and the light shines down on you, and the angels sing, and then suddenly you're going to be with her, and it's going to be forever after. And even after that, when you die, you'll be with her in heaven. You'll be wherever you are with your soulmate somewhere. That's what I'm talking about when I say there's no such thing as a quality woman. You build a relationship. You don't find that relationship. That's why I say there are some good ones and there are some bad ones, but there is no one. The one is an ideal, and it's an unhealthy ideal because it will promote the idea in your head that you should make those sacrifices for that perfect one. That is what you're sacrificing for, not the person, the ideal. The quality woman is an ideal. The soulmate is an ideal. The one-itis, I got feelings for her, that's an ideal. That's not the reality. That's not what that woman is all about. That's not what your relationship is all about. You can build a relationship. You can build a very good relationship. You can be in love with that person and all that good stuff. But once you start putting the one-itis in there, you start putting the soulmate myth in there, and you say, oh, she's my quality woman. You put all that in there, that's when things start to fall apart. Because, first of all, it takes away your identity. If you believe in the soulmate myth, if you believe in one-itis, you're believing in that myth. You're believing in that idealized fantasy of what could be, what was possible. And many men look back on their lives. Many women, same thing. They'll write songs about this. They'll say, well, the one that got away, if I could have just stuck it out with her, everything would have been okay. And then they end up living a life based on chasing an ideal rather than building a reality with somebody and building a healthy relationship. So it's not codependent on a soulmate ideal. So that's today's lesson, I guess. Be sure to hit the subscribe button. Get the alerts. Again, now, of course, everything is nice and quiet. How's this? I hope this was good for you. I hope you guys learned something from this. Again, I am on the road tomorrow on Wednesday, so there's not going to be any show, but you guys will probably watch this as the premiere. So hopefully they'll be good for you. And then don't forget, if you have questions, you go ahead and put them in the comments, but also on Saturday's show on Rule Zero on Entrepreneurs and Cars, that's Rich Cooper's show, we're going to be talking about this topic as well, and you guys can join the conversation. So until then, I'll see you guys later.